Hi everyone, thanks for clicking on the video. This is part 2 in the series where I'm putting my Victory VIP arrows together. In the first video you would have seen me weigh each and every single component and then batch it out so that each arrow ends up weighing pretty much exactly the same weight. Now the discrepancy between the 12 arrows is a very small amount, close enough that I'm going to be happy with the consistency that I've got there as far as that's concerned. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is cleaning up the back ends of the arrow shafts, installing the wraps, and also showing you guys how to install the pins the way that I do with a cling wrap method and all of that. So what I'll do is I'll set the camera up so that it's giving you guys a good view of the table and what it is that I'm doing, and sort of talk my way through each of the steps, and hopefully you guys can learn something. Now, if ever in any of my videos I do something that you think you know a better way to do, remember you can always leave a comment down below and let me know how you do things so that I might learn something as well, because I mean that's the whole point of all of this, isn't it? So we can all learn together and end up being better archers for it. So I'll get the camera set up and we'll move on to the next part. Alright, so basically what I've got here is the mat that I like to use when I put my wraps on my arrows, and the reason I like to use this is because of all the little squares that are on it. It helps you make sure that everything is nice and straight before you roll your wrap on, and that way you make sure that your wrap is nice and straight on your arrow as well. Now I have cleaned the back end of the arrow with some rubbing alcohol, and you'll be surprised at just how much dirt actually comes off of the arrow. Now it's probably carbon dust from when I cut them and a bit of dust from being in the shop and you know, all that sort of stuff. So the first thing that I'll have to do is take the wrap and decide which way around I want the wrap to be on the shaft. Now I want to have my vanes pasted on this side and my name and everything away from the vane so that I don't run the risk of actually sticking the vane over my name and the number on the shaft. So that's important for you to remember, so that you make sure that you put the wraps the same way each time you put them down on this mat. Now the mat's just a normal everyday cutting mat that you can buy from any sort of office supplies type of shop or anything like that. So it's nothing fancy. It does have a little bit of give in it as well, so it's a tiny bit spongy, which is good for when you roll your wrap on. It means that you're not going to get any air bubbles as well. So we'll get this wrap off of the backing. It should come off fairly easily, trying not to sort of roll the corners of it over too much so that it sits nicely when it's stuck down onto the arrow. And you also want to try and make sure that you don't bend the wrap too much. And putting it down can be a little tricky as well, so I find that if I use something like this mechanical pencil, I can push it down, move it around on the mat, and it doesn't get stuck to it like it would your fingers. Now my name and everything is on this side of the wrap, which means that I want to put the end of the arrow shaft on this side of the wrap so that my name ends up away from where my vanes are going to be. So the next thing to do is to basically line up your arrow shaft with the wrap and make sure your arrow shaft is exactly straight along the edge of the wrap, and then pushing down onto the arrow shaft, just roll it, and you'll see that you get a nice clean, let's get that to focus, you'll see you get a nice clean install of your arrow wrap like that. So the next thing I like to do then is, you can see the seam running along there. I actually take my fingers and I just make sure that the whole wrap is making good contact with the carbon so that none of it has any air bubbles underneath it. So there we go. That's how I install the wraps on my arrow shafts. So pretty happy with that for the first one. Now that the arrow shafts are starting to become numbered with the stickers, it's going to make it a little bit easier to keep track of which ones go with which veins and points and all the rest of it. So now we just basically do the same thing. Grab my pencil, unstick it from my finger, line it up on the grid on my cutting mat. Make sure it's straight, make sure you know where your name and number is so that you don't accidentally put the wrap on the wrong way around. Line everything up nice and straight, and pushing down, roll it forward. Make sure there's no air bubbles. And as you can see, that's another nice installation. Now if you do go over the end of the shaft a little bit with the wrap, it's not the end of the world. You can take a razor knife and kind of just trim it. It's not a big deal. Alright, so 2 down, 10 to go. Alright, so I had one not go on very well. What we'll do is pull it off and replace it with another one. Now one of the cool things about arrowwraps.com.au is that you pay for 12 wraps and they send you 15. So because I destroyed wrap number 7 on that arrow, I'm going to end up with lucky number 13 as one of my arrows. So this will be the last one that I get to put on, and then we'll do the pins. So that's the installation job on the wraps done. I'm pretty happy with how they all came out. Kind of sucks that I destroyed wrap number 7 and had to put wrap number 13 on one of the arrows. Just personal preference. I would like them to be 1 to 12. But now I have a lucky arrow number 13, so we'll just see how lucky that arrow can be. Now the next thing I wanted to show you guys in this video is how I install the pin nocks into the back ends of the arrows. And to do that, I use cling wrap. Any cling wrap will do, or thin plastic of some description, shopping bags, whatever. If they're the reusable shopping bags, they're probably a bit too thick because the tolerance between the pin and the back end of the arrow is actually pretty good. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there, so you need something that's quite thin that's going to fit in there really nicely. So I'll set the camera up nice and close again and show you guys how I do that. Alright, so basically what I do is I take the cling wrap and I just drape it over the back end of the arrow like that. Then I take my pin and I push it in so that it sandwiches some of that cling wrap in between the pin and the arrow shaft, and basically break it off, tear it off like that. If there's anything that hangs out a little bit too much, like this little bit of plastic here, you can always just cut that off or pull on it and it should come off. Now the pin's in there, you can see it comes out if you put a lot of pressure on it, but it's in there well enough that you can shoot the arrow and your pins aren't going to come out. Now if you are worried about it, you can fold the cling wrap over double. Let's do that now. Drape that over, grab your nock, push it in, and you get a much tighter fit if you do it that way. Tear off the extra, and again, it's in there well enough that you can shoot the arrow and you're not going to lose a nock. Now if you ever have one come out, you can always redo the plastic. In this one it actually feels like I'm going to double up on the plastic on all of them because that's in there a lot more snugly. So that's pretty much it as far as putting the wraps onto the arrow shafts are concerned. I'm definitely a big fan of using these cutting mats to do that because the lines on them just make it so easy to make sure that everything's lined up straight and your arrow wraps go on well. Also, the little bit of cushioning that it provides prevents any air bubbles from forming as you roll the arrow over the wrap. Now, as for using the plastic to install the pin nocks, if you find that 2 layers of plastic isn't enough. You can always fold it over a third or a fourth time. It just depends on the tolerances between the outer diameter of your pin and the inner diameter of your arrow shaft. So that's something that if you want to use this method, you might have a little bit of trial and error getting right. And then, as you saw, the biter nocks went onto the pins very easily, and they can still be rotated left or right so that you can make sure the spine alignment of your arrow shafts is correct. So the next video will be me gluing the points into the shafts, and then also setting up the fletching jig and fletching all of the shafts as well. So thanks for watching. Leave a like or a comment below. Remember to click on the subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and click the little bell icon so you receive a notification each time I upload a new video. As always, I hope you all have a great week, and remember, just do good shots.